Have you ever worked with someone who tells the CTO the project is failing because of technical debt, and then tells the CEO that it's failing because of unclear requirements, and then tells the team it's failing because leadership keeps changing priorities?
So I'm going to go with the and first. Homage to people that pointed me out to this. And it's because the teams aren't very good at defining requirements and delivering to those, right?
I thought you were going to say because that person's a liar. That's what,
no, they're lying or they're being economical with the truth. Either way. So here, right, if you're a CTO who is in this situation, you're doing the best you can. We understand that. If you're a team member, though, your CTO is doing the best they can. Are you? Right? Are people changing the way they're speaking or their communication to basically satisfy a means to an end that's self-serving for them, right? Or are they being political and changing it in a way where blame is deflected somewhere else, except them, of course, but also hopefully if they're protective of your team, that they're going to try and shield you in some way. So the rest of this podcast is important if you're going to be successful in navigating this.
One would hope.
One would hope, and I think we can deliver on that promise.
Okay, so there was a small section in the... I don't reference Adam Grant that much because I don't really like his books that much. Shocker. But in Think Again, he names this thing about people who frequently change their message, not the delivery, the message, what's called narrative inconsistency, which, as you know, destroys trust, as you would expect. And I'm going to step back for a second and kind of define this problem, this part one of this problem, why we distrust, quote, adaptive communicators. I'm going to say effective leaders, like you said, they're emphasizing different aspects of the truth, depending on what the audience cares about. This is the typical advice that people will give, especially in the agile space. They'll say, oh, you got to meet that person where they are, like executive or C-level executive or whatever, and speak. Oh, you got to speak about EBITDA. You got to speak about earnings. You got to speak
their language.
Speak ROI. You got to speak their language. That's the main thing you'll hear. That's one point. The other one is using identical language with executives or developers or customers or whatever. That demonstrates a lack of emotional intelligence. The other point here, the other point in the against for what I'm saying is that if you never change your language, use the same language with executives or developers or customers and whatnot, that demonstrates that you have a lack of emotional intelligence, that you have a lack of the ability to tailor your message to the audience how they need to hear it to make impact. So those are the two. If I'm going to take a minute and kind of steelman, sorry, I never use the word steelman. Working in DC, like those guys love steelman and strawman, so I'm going to start working that in now because I know a bunch of them have been listening to the last couple podcasts on. That one's for you guys. That's my best steelman argument here is like the effective people here, like they're being economical with the truth. Maybe they're emphasizing aspects of it more with different audiences. And then the other side of it is like, well, if you don't learn to do that, you're never going to get to the top, right? And they're always going to be like, well, this person he can't speak the language. He can't be my eyes and ears. So I don't know why. I didn't mean to throw that one in there.
They're not effective communicators.
Yeah.
Tailoring your message, tailoring your communication language to the audience that you're targeting, that's one thing. Most people, I would say pretty much anyone who's listening to this did not go to a class in school that teaches you this stuff. You learn this by flapping your arms and trying to stay afloat. Yeah, that's the word that springs to mind. As you go through your career, we don't have these skills that are taught to us. So how do you get to that point where you can, A, survive, and hopefully B, thrive at some point?
Well, let's talk about that's the storybook against case here. So what do we really believe here? What are we trying to emphasize here? There's a couple points. The main one, which was my gripe that I started with in this podcast, was if the message changes, like you lose integrity with me immediately.
If you find out that the message has changed.
That's true.
So, the audiences are often insulated from one another, but often you do find out, right? Because somebody says something to someone. It's really about how far they drop in your esteem, right? Because they are just basically being a chameleon at that point. And if you're feeling that way, you can bet other people are too. Right? Yeah. So you have this compounding effect. And that person, the messenger, they stand to lose some credibility there.
Well, why are they doing that? Why would they do that? I only have one answer, and I'll throw it out right away. They're protecting their own reputation at the cost of everything else.
That's it. That's your ace card, and that's the only card in this deck, really. That's the reason why they do that, right? The opposite side of it is, they're going to put themselves out there and sacrifice their net worth, so to speak, to protect the team. I can count on one hand with fingers to spare how many people have actually done that. In my experience,
oh,
very few.
Oh, do you have a story?
I have a story of
time
one time when a person did that, and they were the first people. When the team was teams in this case, when they were basically off-ramped, they were the first people one of the first persons to say, this is actually not right. The team is very good at what they do, and it's for other reasons, and they pointed out the reasons. And this was in a town hall meeting.
Yeah.
And I remember the leadership saying, well, if that's your position, the organization doesn't value that kind of an approach or an attitude. And they walked, and along with them, 6 other people walked.
Wow.
Right away. And they knew, these 6 knew, but those people that were now left wondering what's going to happen to us, they found out within a week.
Yeah.
They were all gone. So, I mean, look, I think it takes a lot for someone to say, I'm going to wear my heart on a sleeve and I'm going to just say what I feel, and to heck with the consequences, because it's the right thing to do. Most people don't do that.
I got a zinger for you.
Let's have a zinger.
My zinger is if you don't want your conversation played on the speaker, in fact, like when you call somebody and you're on the speaker on the phone and they're like, am I on speaker? That's this person. If you wouldn't say whatever you're going to say, hey, take me off speaker.
Usually a good red signal right there. Take me off speaker.
If you won't say on speaker to everybody what you would only say to one person, there's a good chance that you're not just adapting your communication style. You're changing the message and also covering your backside.
Yeah. Yeah, look, there's no arguing there. I mean, that's a telltale sign. The other telltale sign is when you're in a larger group setting and somebody presses you for an answer or an opinion or whatever, and there's a mixed audience there, right? So your get out of jail card there is, let's take that offline. I mean, why are they doing that? Because honestly, if you have a message, just say it. But you're reluctant to say it because you have various messages. Mm-hmm. So you can pick up on that as a recipient of the message.
I have a takeaway here that I wrote down. Before you have your stakeholder conversation, you write down the facts of what you want to communicate, because that stakeholder communication could be at any level. Could be, if you look at the podcast we did on stakeholder communication, it's Arguing Agile 201, Mastering Stakeholder Communication and Management, where we talked about the power interest grid and all that. But write down some facts that you need to communicate. And then no matter what audience you're talking to, you should be able to communicate the facts of the situation. Maybe you communicate the facts a little differently, or the different audiences want to dig in and ask you about different facts. Sure, but the facts of the situation don't change.
Yeah, that's true. If it helps any, right, you could use a loose framework like write down the interest groups, write down the facts as you would like to relay them in each of the columns for each interest group, and then sort those, right, so that the like facts are on the same row, so to speak, and then decide, given a certain amount of time that you have to speak, which ones are you willing to go with?
Yeah.
At least that way you're prepared with your communication message. So that might be helpful, it might not be, but it's something I thought about you could do, because you don't have the floor for long, but what you say matters. Yeah.
So now it's up to the audience. What do you think about this category? Did we get this right? Have you worked with people who tells different stories to different people, and has that blown up for you? Or
what's been your experience?